The house was too quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't feel peaceful but heavy, as though every wall is holding back tears. Meera sat in the living room, staring at the old clock on the wall. The hands ticked forward, yet she felt stuck in time, trapped in a life where the only thing alive were memories. The cushions beside her still carried the faint smell of his perfume. She hadn't washed them since that day. Since Arjun left. She closed her eyes and tried to remember the sound of his laughter, the way his voice filled every corner of this house, the way his hands held hers as though they were made to fit. Memories came like waves, sometimes soft and comforting, other times crashing so hard she could barely breathe. The beginning. Years ago, Meera had been just another girl in a small town. Dreamy-eyed, book-loving, someone who believed that love was the most beautiful thing in the world. She met Arjun on a rainy day, under the broken roof of a bus stop. She was carrying too many bags, trying to shield herself from the downpour, when he appeared, holding out his umbrella. "You'll catch a cold like that," he had said, his voice warm, teasing. Meera looked up, and their eyes met for the first time. Something shifted inside her, a quiet recognition, as though she had known him all her life. That one simple act became the beginning of everything. From sharing umbrellas, they began sharing conversations. From conversations, they shared secrets. And from secrets, they built a world only they understood. A home built on love. When they married, they didn't have much. A small house with cracked walls, second-hand furniture, and a kitchen that smelled of fresh paint. But for them, it was a palace. Every corner carried laughter, dreams, and silly fights over unwashed dishes. Arjun would bring home flowers every Friday, sometimes roses, sometimes marigolds, sometimes even wildflowers he picked on his way back. "Our home should never forget how love smells," he would say. Meera filled journals with poems she wrote about him. Words spilled like rivers whenever she thought of his smile, his eyes, the way he looked at her as though she was the only one in the world. Years passed, and their love didn't fade. If anything, it grew stronger. Even on the worst days, when the electricity bill was too high, when the roof leaked during the monsoons, when Arjun came home exhausted, they held on to each other. Their home was not perfect, but it was theirs. The breaking. It was a winter evening when everything changed. Arjun had gone to work like always, kissing her forehead before leaving. "I'll be back before dinner," he said, his usual words. But dinner went cold. The clock struck 9, then 10, then midnight. Meera's heart grew heavier with every passing hour until the phone rang. A stranger's voice. A trembling explanation. An accident on the highway. A truck. Too fast. Too late. Meera's world collapsed in a single sentence. The man she had built her entire life around, the man whose laughter filled every silence, whose touch calmed every storm, was gone. When she saw him at the hospital, lifeless, she felt a part of herself die too. She held his hand, cold and unresponsive, and begged him to wake up, to fight, to not leave her alone. But silence answered. The aftermath. The days that followed were a blur. Relatives came and went, offering words that meant nothing. The house filled with people, but Meera felt utterly alone. And then, everyone left. The house stood quiet again, but now it felt like a stranger. Every corner reminded her of him. His slippers by the door. His mug in the kitchen. His books on the shelf. She couldn't bring herself to move anything, as if by keeping them there, she could keep him alive. Nights were the hardest. She would lie on their bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the sound of his footsteps, his familiar humming. But all she heard was the echo of her own sobs. She stopped writing poems. Words had abandoned her, just like life had. She stopped cooking properly. Meals didn't matter when you had no one to share them with. She stopped laughing. The sound felt foreign, almost disrespectful to her grief. The whisper of memories. One evening, weeks after his passing, she sat by the window, holding one of his old shirts. She buried her face in it, breathing in the fading scent of him. And for the briefest moment, she heard his voice. Not loud, not clear, but like a whisper. "I'm still here." Her heart leapt, but when she looked around, there was no one. Just silence again, yet she couldn't shake the feeling. It was as though the house itself carried his presence, the walls holding his laughter, the floor remembering his steps, the air heavy with his love. From that day on, Meera began to live differently. Not happily, not fully, but with a quiet acceptance that love doesn't end with death. Love lingers. It stays in the spaces between silence. It breathes in memories. It whispers through empty homes. The letter. Months later, while cleaning the drawer of his desk, Meera found an envelope. On it was written in Arjun's handwriting, "For Meera, in case I'm not around." Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a letter, simple yet filled with him. "My love, if you're reading this, life has taken me away sooner than we planned. I don't want you to cry for me. I want you to live, to laugh, to write again. Promise me you won't let this house become a grave of memories. Fill it with your light. Love doesn't die, Meera. I'll always be with you, in the spaces you can't see, in the whispers of the night, in the warmth of the sun. Keep living, for us." Tears blurred her vision, but for the first time, they didn't feel heavy. They felt like rain washing her soul. She pressed the letter to her chest and whispered, "I promise." A new dawn. It wasn't easy. Healing never is. Some days she still woke up crying, reaching for a man who wasn't there. Some nights she still held his shirt, pretending he was beside her. But slowly, little by little, she began to live again. She started writing, filling pages with poems, not of grief, but of love that transcends endings. She planted flowers in their garden, keeping alive his Friday ritual. She invited children from the neighborhood into her home, filling it with laughter again. The house no longer felt empty. It carried whispers, yes, but not of sorrow. Whispers of love, whispers of strength, whispers of Arjun telling her, "I'm still here." And deep down, she knew he always would be.